So, hello guys and welcome to this new video. Today we are here for, well, I guess you could say dungeon tech. It's been a while and people really seem to like the subject for some reason, even though it's all just theory for now. And yeah, but people still seem to like it. Um, as a result, I was kind of pressured to make the kind of follow up on what I've been saying earlier fairly soon. Well, I've been procrastinating a lot. So this video will, but yeah, basically someone contacted me a couple of weeks ago. They wanted to do some stuff on their own with Dungeon, trying to build, I think, something basically like an Octa spawner or something. And I said, yeah, but even if you don't want to go for 72 spawner, there's still some stuff in my research you may want to use for pushing stuff in and such, which will be mainly what this video is about. And as a result, I advised them to wait until this video, and I said a couple of weeks, and it's been more than a couple of weeks, so my procrastination has come to an end, and today I'm here to summarize basically all bunch of stuff I've done concerning Dungeon Tech since I released that video in the beginning of July. So yeah, first of all, corrections from the last video. As I feared back then, my concept was not actually sound, my proof concept. The main problem is simply that apparently something else I assumed, a wrong assumption I made is that when the game calls the isSolid function for method for a spawner block, I assumed that would return false. As far as I knew, solidness was basically the same as transparency. That was an assumption I made, and that assumption turned out to be wrong. I did some I did some searching through the code, and from another place I got a piece of code which basically goes to. It was a long time ago. We're talking about this. I found this over a month ago, so I'm not entirely sure anymore. However, um, normally, I think the test went like this. Basically, if you can place a fence gate on top of a block, it is solid. If you cannot, then there can be multiple reasons. Usually it's not solid, but there's also other things we can, of course, block it. For example, if there's an entity in the region, then you can also not place a block there. There's also other constraints sometimes. Anyway, so yeah, as you can tell, you can place these on top spawners. As well, they are considered solid blocks. As a result, when the game looks at these blocks and they're like, they're solid. Is this dungeon tries to generate? Well, when the spawn is already in place, it will replace the spawner by a cobblestone block. Basically, when dungeons generate, they will replace their walls by cobblestone. Like if you're in a dungeon, the walls are never made out of stone; they're made out of cobblestone, even though the natural rock was just stone. That's because the game looks if it's a solid block, and if so, it replaces it by cobblestone. If not, it just leaves it, which is usually air. So, anyway, that caused some trouble. So I kind of have to throw this part away, where you cannot really have spawners inside of each their region anymore, you could say. So I thought about it for a long time, and in the end, after a day or something of kind of twisting my brain or whatever you want to call it, I came up with a new design. However, this is a lot more constrained, and this kind of makes me doubt the chances of actually creating a 72 spawner at some point drastically. So yeah, basic main changes. The height is still the same. Well, actually, no, sorry, that's the thing. Height is actually drastically smaller. Why? Because we had to space the sounds out one block more. I had to do something with the height, which is basically that with this design, I think I could have something like if this is the floor, then you have. Let's grab that. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, now you have 4 blocks between each floor. In the past, I think I had then this needed to be a solid layer then. Then in here I had a choice again. Yeah, so I think I had 2 more layers. That's not the case anymore. That's quite important. And it really constrains us. Why? Well, the thing is because this actually constrains a lot in the order. Say you have 6 spawners like these. Yeah, first I should probably show that this actually does work as well. The setup where you have a 3 block space between each spawner. Of course, all of these dungeons, well, not all of them, but most of them need to be the small 7x7 dungeons. These can be 9x7 technically, the side ones, if they're oriented the right way, but yeah, you're quite constrained still. Anyway, if I do this normally, Looks like I've positioned myself. Yep. So as you can tell, everything is spinning around, working fine. Plus, I should probably mention this video will contain a lot of information, so it's going to be pretty long. But yeah. Anyway, that works, but there are some constraints. Basically, one of the things I can, for example, say is that if you go for a simple order like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there will be a problem because after these 3 have generated, these blocks right here will be removed because they are inside of the, like on the inside, like these will be removed because they are inside of the inside of the room, basically, of this dungeon. And then these will still have their solid floor. However, the second this first one generates, you know, when it generates, if a floor block doesn't have a solid support, I think it was solid, it will be removed. In other words, if there's air and this is a solid floor, then this dungeon may still generate, but it will destroy these blocks and such, which will then prevent the other dungeons from generating. So that doesn't work. Let me give you an example which would work, which would be basically going from the top to the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You have to always make sure that, as far as I know, these, and all circumstances, whatever order you go for it, these black stained glass blocks need to be there. The gray ones have to be there under some circumstances, depending a bit on the order you're going with. The thing is that you cannot always use these either, because, you know, you need a solid ceiling, again, for these. So if you're just going for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you actually need to have an entire solid floor here, solid, well, you could say foundation here as well, because you need to keep your solid ceiling for the layer below. Now, say you do something like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then you still have your solid floor. You don't have a foundation anymore fully, maybe, but that does mean that I think you can do some other stuff in other positions then. Actually, I'm not entirely sure. Don't think it matters that much. I haven't really thought it entirely through. Just because it's getting very complicated like this, and frankly, I'm a bit lazy. I'm not sure. Maybe I won't continue this project, I don't know. But for now, I guess it's the information worth sharing for those who are interested. Now, another subject I would quickly like to tackle are abandoned mineshafts. I thought about this a couple of weeks ago. I am not interested in looking how mineshafts generate, to be honest. I've tried to look into lake generation because that will be quite useful. As far as I know, lake gen can be used to manipulate the random seeds. Also, lake gen is done before dungeon gen. As a result, you can use it to influence the first spawner's properties. However, yeah, the lake gen class is fake, and I'm still trying to make my way through it. So I'm not really interested in looking into the mineshaft. As a result, 72 spawner cluster should actually be called 72 dungeon cluster, I guess, because I guess you could like maybe I don't have a clue how mineshafts work, but you could probably get some more, like a couple of spider spawners in there as well with a bit of effort. But yeah, I'm gonna ignore that considering I don't have a clue how it all works. It's gonna give you a couple more spawners. If you want to, feel free to. That's it for the I would say general the general like corrections and stuff I had to make and stuff I thought about. So yeah, as you can tell, the current proof of concept is a lot more constrained in the order and such, and you also have a lot, not just the order, but the main problem is that you have a lot less freedom with the how do you call this? You have a lot less freedom with, come on, Matt, use your brain, please. With the foundation blocks, which normally you can use to manipulate the seed for a bit. Now, that's problematic. However, regardless of if you're doing big or small dungeon tech projects, there's something which you need to take into account, which is that you're going to have to push blocks in. Now, if you're going for a very small thing, you can just use unidirectional slimestone, or not even slimestone. You could use a cobra like Panda did back in the day, before slime blocks were added. So yeah, back then you could basically build a unidirectional machine which would push your dungeons in. So that's pretty cool. However, in my opinion, it's still that stuff we don't use anymore. I wouldn't advise using for any decent sized dungeon tech projects. Why? Simply because you can't afford wasting room on your machinery. Especially the Cobra, the old Cobra, like the new Cobra is you can build a pretty small unidirectional Cobra. People have already done it for new dungeons. So if you want to go for a small project, you can use those. But for anything above, I guess 10 spanners or something, it would be more useful to use bidirectional technology, which you basically allows you to push blocks in and then get them and then get the machine back out. And like how you can basically create any kind of structure you want as long as it's made out of pushable blocks, of course. And of course, you have to also be willing to rebuild a lot of machinery in your chunks. However, you can access remote chunks with it. So that's what you may have realized some of the machines were about. In fact, I think I mentioned it's the absolute autosave detector, the horizontal parallel line expander. I made them for this. Also, this entire setup I've been showing in some of my past videos. I basically made this one about a month ago, and I actually already a bit over a month ago. It's such a long time. When I basically started to do some more research, and yeah, as a result, I've been doing some working with chunks. So let me show the setup we have right here. So we have the red zone. This is a zone where you would normally not walk into because it would basically load too much of this. All of this technology is fine-tuned for 3 chunk render distance, basically. So if you step into this chunk, you do not populate any of the blue chunks, which would kind of danger zone. You basically load this chunk, this one, this one, this one, in a row like that. So basically you populate chunks up to here, which is alright. You just want to make sure you don't populate these chunks. However, there's a very good reason we can't stay in there, because we will also I will talk about this in a second, actually. But anyway, you've got set up. We've got our 16 chunks. Some of them will have to be loaded. However, at all times, we do not want to have a 2x2 square of chunks loaded, because that would cause population in reality, and that would be annoying. Now, I also have these paths here made out of glass. The dark path, the gray path kind of shows the total size dungeons could be. And if you want to push them in, the spawners can spawn up to here, the walls up to here. However, with my current 72 spawner proof concept, you would only have to push stuff in up to here, as far as I know. So that's basically one block over the chunk border. Now, something wrong with chunk borders before I continue this thing. Also, I should probably mention there's clocks in every chunk. Let me quickly activate this. This is going to be very spammy, so I may also have deactivated, but actually, I do not know what the name is. First of all, let's remove the objective cooldown. I used it yesterday for my map, but I don't need it anymore. Cooldown. Scoreboard, objectives, set display, sidebar, load time. Bam. So as you can tell, there's a bunch of basically, you have all these names right here. Spawn is just the main towers in the spawn chunks, always loaded. And then you've got the other ones. X0, Z0 is here. Then as you go this way, you go to X1, X2, X3, then Z1, Z2, Z3, and so on. So for example, I can stand over here with G-chunk render distance and show you that only 4 normally are, only 4 times are being increased, which are the X0 lines, and then once I leave, those also pass. So it's working fine. However, I don't like 3 chunk render distance, so I'm gonna not use that for a while. Anyway, something else. I would like my speeds, actually. Okay, so another problem I encountered is basically pushing blocks in adjacent to chunks. I didn't really think about this before, but it's actually kind of logical if you think about it. When you have a block not pass into a chunk, like from here to there, but just pass by a chunk, you still need to update some stuff. For example, say there's a bud over here, then well, basically it will have to cause block updates because, well, that's not the stuff they want. But say you have something like this over here, then the game needs to check if there's a lamp over here or something which needs to be powered. So it needs to load its chunk, to run, basically cause block updates and that kind of stuff. So that's actually kind of problematic. If you want to just push your dungeon in from exactly the chunk border to somewhere else, then you will also load chunk next to it. And as I said earlier, you cannot have a 2x2 square of chunks. That's why we push everything in one row of chunks and get everything out in one row of chunks. So we have to make sure that we basically not load the 2x2 region. So I'm going to slightly let me actually show this for a second. I have some technology right here, which I use to test this theory. So you've got the dark blue one, which is that chunk, and the light blue one over here. And basically we will just, let me just first do something like this. I'm going to cut this, and then I'm going to do this. And basically, normally, actually I can do something, I can even use slam blocks to show that it has nothing to do with the piston itself, it's just the block moving, which causes the trouble. So normally, once we do this, the light blue chunk should load. So let me quickly do this, 3 chunks, yep, everything pauses. We can activate this from here. As you can tell, that loaded the light blue chunk, or cyan chunk, whatever you want to call it. And now if we use another setup, over here, you'll notice that we will simply load both chunks. So that's kind of problematic. Because basically that means that, yeah, it basically means that the second one of our blocks in the flying machine passes by like one of these chunk corners, it will load a 2x2 region of chunks, population will happen, and that's what we don't want. So how do we prevent that? We basically don't really touch this border except for one chunk. That's the idea. We are going to, our plan is not to stick to one line, that's kind of impossible, one line of chunks. However, we will stick to one line and one chunk basically next to it. How? Well, how do you push stuff in then? Let me present you this machine right here. This is our typical horizontal line expander, about 100 blocks long. And here at the end our head. It's not a complicated slimestone at all. This section will push it in. Then when it returns, this is the butt by the way, for those who don't know. Let me grab flint and steel. Flint and steel, limestone, there's best friends. So yeah, as you can tell, that's basically this thing leaves the cobble block behind, and then this comes back every time it's basically every time this thing moves, it will push the block out and it will push it into position. That way only one block, but basically that way you only will load one chunk next to it like this. You can also use for row of blocks. You would have to change the head for a bit, like this machine would have to be changed for a bit. But for now I'm just doing it like this with one block. You have to just make sure that you don't try to do it in multiple chunks. You have to chop out the chunk border right here. You cannot try to push stuff in like this, because then you will load for the 2x2 chunk area. So yeah, let me quickly show that thing in action. While I'm at it, I could also actually... I don't want my machine to break though. Yeah, there's a lot of chunk loading problems, so for now I think it may just be better to not still stick with the... It's maybe better to just go with the 8 chunk render distance, so there's no problems, but I will just quickly show the machine in action. Yeah, so let's quickly reverse engines. I have a lot of like testing equipment hooked up to this, so it's always a bit of a mess to figure out how to do this. Yeah, 18 minutes in. Doesn't surprise me. Like, this is over a month of me just doing random tests and such. So yeah, as you can tell, machines just being pushed in, horizontal line expander. I can quickly also show cobble block is being pushed. It's not next, it's one block away from the chunk border, so that's good. And then every time that thing pushes, the butt activates and also pushes. So yeah, we've got our 16 timers right here. I could show that they load, but the thing is that there's problems with the chunk resets, which I will talk about in a second, which could risk this machine breaking, and I don't like when it breaks because it's always a mess to restore from using MCD and such. Of course I got backups, but like they take some time to paste in and such. So yeah, as you can tell, this is just going like right here. Also, by the way, in case you're wondering, these things are chunk loaders. I use them. Basically, I need them to get them together with my research. With my. You basically need to use these for my tests because in case the machine broke, I'll talk about it in a second. But let's just remember that these are chunk loaders. So as you can tell, the block was left behind. It was pushed right here on the corner, and it loaded just this chunk. I've done that in tests, and I've seen that it works with the timers. You just have to trust me because I don't want to risk this machine breaking right here while I'm recording. It would take a lot of time to fix. Anyway, so now it's coming back. I'm just gonna use stick speed now because it's getting pretty long in my opinion. There it goes. Good enough. Okay, so yeah, that's that machine. So basically, that would be how you would handle these chunk borders. This is how you can get stuff next to the chunk border without having to load the 2x2 chunk area. That's that. Now, as for the machine itself breaking or not breaking, I did a lot of tests with this, breaking because of the chunk reset that I talked about earlier. I tested a lot, and the results were disappointing. So that's why I used my absolute autosave detector. Basically, this thing will detect whenever an autosave happens, when the chunks get unloaded. And basically, what I wanted to see is if there was some delay, like if I hook up this reverser, which will start an engine, up to this autosave detector with some kind of delay, will it be able to pass it through the chunk reset without problems? Because basically, like I had a lot of test runs, and it's often actually managed to go back and forth fine without breaking. So I figured that maybe it's possible. So I did some research, and basically it took me a long time to set up. So yeah, how should I talk about this? Like, you got this counter right next to my name here. Can't put my mouse on it, but 21. Basically, this means I used to use that counter because I would test for every single. This is so hard to explain. Sorry if I don't make any sense, but basically what I would do is you have that counter. I would copy that to a kind of countdown. Then when that countdown hits 0, it would activate the reverser. I would set basically whenever the autosave detector triggered, it would set the countdown to this value. Then it would get decreased by one per tick. One per game tick, of course. Then basically trigger the reverser when it hits 0. So every time at a different delay, and then the reverser would go back and forth, and then after a long time when the counter is into far negative values, this thing will activate this, and we'll run a check whether or not, using test for blocks, whether or not the machine arrived back well and safe. If it did, then it will just increase the value, the counter by 1. In fact, it will always do that. And then it will be allow the next autosave signal to do the sequence again. If not, it will basically run a bunch of weird stuff in order to try to reset everything, including loading the chunks, so it can actually remove the mess in there and that kind of stuff. It's pretty annoying to work with, to be honest. Like, you have to either, I had to run everything so that I could just stand here and the machine would handle everything. So, and even then, it's still a problem. So, but anyway, it led me through some tests with different delays. Let me see if I can find the results. It's been a while, but I should probably mention those on here. Dungeon tech loading delays. Opening up. Okay, so I did 2 tests with countdowns going from 0 to 70 ticks. So that means between 0 and 70 ticks between this thing triggering and the engine leaving. And basically, I checked. Every time that thing failed, it gave me a message in chats. Here, basically, yeah, and I would write it down, and I've got a list. Basically, my first test said that basically it failed with 0 ticks, 3 ticks, 4, 5, 6, 9, and so on, all the way to 64 and then 69. And you think, okay, then you use one of the other ones, right? And it works fine. Well, here's where Minecraft just gets inconsistent again. I do not understand at all why. Maybe it's like, because of course I was doing this research using tick speed mods, so it was really stressing my game. Also, it would take way too long. It takes minutes for this thing to fly back and forth in vanilla. So yeah, but the thing is, with this, when I did the second series of tests, I got different results. 0 did work, and then I go for it. It's mostly the same, but then at other point it gets different again. For example, 22 did not work, even though it worked in the first test, and so on. So I think I will put the list on Pastebin so you can take a look at them yourself. But it's pretty strange behavior, to say the least. And yeah, basically my conclusion from that was we cannot just rely on trying to like kind of snipe our way through the chunk reset. Unfortunately. which would be very cool. But yeah, so that's what this entire setup was about. It was just about automatic experiments. Okay, with that out of the way, let's move on to our second setup. This is a setup I built yesterday. My second hypothesis was basically okay. Well, we know how fast this engine travels. It takes 0.6 seconds per block. This is a distance of 104 blocks, so if we divide it up in two, then it takes roughly 30 seconds to go to the center. And then we can pause the machine, have everything come to a halt again, and then we wait for the next signal from the absolute autosave detector, and then we will start the machine again. Basically, the idea is you just bring it to a halt, then make sure everything is standing still when the reset happens, and then start moving everything again and load the chunks in the process. I had to build this bidirectional pausing machine right here, which will basically accept the thing, pause it, then send it back in, and then basically let it go again. It's kind of annoying, to be honest. It took me some time to design, but it works. Now, as for this one, I do dare to use this one because yesterday it had very good results. However, the results were not perfect. Let me just quickly show this thing in action for once. So, while we're at it, maybe it's also worth using the timers right here, because this one is pretty reliable. So I'm going to put a block here, but it's not going to be that useful considering that there's no timer right there, so it's not really going to do much. Well, in fact, actually, I can actually do stuff. Let's do some stuff. I can just put a say command there. It's kind of annoying, but it also works. So say 1. So yeah, basically say loaded 2, and then over here we will have another one, which will be loaded 1 or something, I don't know. And this one shouldn't be loaded, and the other one, loaded 2, should be loaded. Well, I mean, it will be loaded, so that's what I'm trying to prove here. So yeah, 1 and 2 are currently both loaded, as you can tell. Sorry, I can now decrease run distance. Now they're not loaded anymore, as you can tell. And now we can start doing some stuff. So basically, you can look at the timers on the right if you want to. We will now activate the chunk reset detector. That will basically activate this. Then whenever it actually receives a pulse, it will first lengthen it, because it's absolute in the sense that the rising edge of this machine, of its output, is absolute. The falling edge is variable, unfortunately. It varies between 3, 4, 5, 6 ticks in length of the signal. So I lengthen it to make sure it's at least 4, and then use this thing to cut it off. So basically you have this thing stabilizes the signal to 4 ticks in length precisely. Then for that one is just instant line. It will, and basically it activates all the reversers and the pausers. As a result, basically wherever the machine is, it will continue. So yeah, with all that being said, let's activate it. So now you have to basically wait until the chunk reset happens, and then it will launch the machine normally. So I'm just gonna increase the tick speed for a bit, because that can take a while. And of course it didn't work, because why would it? No, CS, I don't have a clue. Oh yeah, right, I forgot. This is because of some testing I was doing yesterday. Let's quickly just put this here for now. Basically that was another thing I had in place, which was preventing the machine from leaving. Oh, yeah, now it started. Actually, that was a bad idea. I'm quickly going to... The reason it started was not because the chunk reset happened, but because I unloaded this by leaving, by flying away. So I have to quickly do this to... do this. So, yeah. You know what, let's just have it go for it again. Yeah, we're just gonna have to continue. So go back to run distance 3. Now we can activate it. And now we can go to tick speed 200. Actually, I'm going to go to 20 maybe. Nah, it can take 45 seconds. So, okay, so chunk reset happened. It's going into the chunks. You can look on the side. You can see the Z3 is loaded. Sorry, X0 is loaded. X1 is loaded right now. X2 is also loaded. X3 is not on the list, unfortunately, so you can see it. And as you can tell, 2 got loaded by the block pushing. 1 did not. And that's my proof, basically. So yeah, basically, as you can tell, this thing pauses. I can quickly show out what it looks like when it pauses. So yeah, that's what it looks like. Just rejects the business for a while, and it will go back in a second. And yeah, that's how it works. Basically, we pause the entire machine while the chunk reset happens, and you would think that's logical. It should work. Yeah, of course not, because Minecraft is not consistent. I was just I forgot. Yeah, I should probably not have done that. Okay. I'm quickly going to just leave it on 200 while I talk for a bit. Now, yesterday I first did this test. I had some trouble with when I got the first real automatic test going. I did 25 tests and 2 of them failed. Basically, blocks were being transported, you could say. It was pretty weird. Blocks were some blocks were being left behind in on some kind of chunk border, and then crashed into other blocks, and they were actually physically there. They weren't ghost blocks. There was no actual duplication. They just disappeared in one spot, and they were in another spot, like 16 blocks further. Yeah, and that was problematic, of course. Now I have to quickly pause the machine now. There we go. Okay, that should do the trick. Let's quickly have it pause. So yeah, you can tell it worked twice now. I have a lot of faith in it. It usually works, but yesterday it did not always. So I noticed something, which is that I actually had it sticking one block over the chunk border. So I thought, let's put it 2 blocks back so it's like in alignment with this thing right here. I did that, and the result, my second hypothesis was that would work. Yeah, of course it didn't work. I also had one fail. Again, blocks moving inexplicably. Like, seriously, Mojang, how do you make this game? Although Slam blocks isn't entirely Mojang's doing, so can't entirely blame them. But I sometimes wonder how these kind of inconsistencies arise. 25 fails, 25 does 1 fail, and as far as I know, the situation was identical every time around. So yeah, that's all I really have to like. This is kind of the result of weeks of research from my part. Inconsistency everywhere. Also, something I didn't talk about, but I also ran some individual tests on the individual delays with this machine, and I tested the 0 delay. I did 23 tests. It failed 0 times, even though it failed once in my first series of tests, which was for the series of delays, not for a single delay. So that's pretty weird. And then I tested the delay 1, and I tested that one 20 times, and it had 3 fails. Yeah, there's just no logic right here. But this thing especially should work. Like, the entire machine is standing still when the chunks reset. Blocks pushing should normally move. When blocks push, normally the chunk should load, right? So, and even if it doesn't work, it should never work. Like, this doesn't make any sense. It works 98% of the time, no, 96% of the time, as far as my research goes. So yeah, I think that's gonna be it for this video. I went talking for over an hour, half an hour. I said it would be a long video. There's a lot of stuff I want to cover. Like, I've been doing some stuff which I haven't talked about. So for those who actually went to the end, watch to the end of this, I'm surprised you're this interested. So there's lots of problems just with the practical parts of pushing stuff in, not alone with the actual chances of getting the dungeons in the right place and such. But yeah, this may also be useful for other kinds of technology, I'm not sure. But I just wanted to share this. I've been working for a while, and it's probably probably good if other people also know about it, and maybe can base some of their own work off it. I think it's all I really have to say, to be honest. I can't do that much talk, like, I know what is around here. I just have the setup, which is a backup. Oh. I'm going to deactivate those command blocks, because I get a good reason of using those scoreboards, because it's not that spammy as those say commands I usually use for testing loaded chunks. Yeah, as you can tell, the block was pushed in exactly at the right spots on the chunk border corner right here, while just loading this chunk, but not this one. So that is working fine, even though I asked you guys to rely on it, on my word for it earlier. Oh well. It's always better if you can test stuff and show your test results, of course. So I could, and that's great. Now I should probably really end this video. So yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments. I'll try to answer everything normally. If you are interested in the project, well, I don't know, maybe I'm not interested anymore myself. We'll see. But good luck regardless. And I think that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching, people, and I hope I'll see you in another video.